Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Madden Benz Unfiltered. Tim Benz and Mark Madden with you, brought to you by Rush to Crush Cancer. More than a bike ride, it's a mission. Join us May 19th for the Rush to Crush Cancer bike ride. To register, go to rushtocrushcancer.org and help us in the fight against cancer. Join the ride. Tim Benz, Mark Madden with you. Mark actually off from his radio show today. I'll be filling in at the Cambria Suites and Hotel because Mark is having dental surgery, which is a great way to describe what the Penguins put everybody through against the Boston Bruins on Saturday night. Mark, first of all,
that wasn't good. And Nashville tonight, Nashville really with nothing to play for. Maybe that works in the Penguins' favor, but a lot has to work in the Penguins' favor for them to make the playoffs. They got to get a lot of results go their way in a lot of other games tonight. It's going to be all happening. It's like Decision Monday.
Yeah, there's a lot going on involving the Penguins, the playoff race. The Predators come in. You want to put together a streak of points, Mark? Do it like the Predators did starting in mid-February. I think they went on an 18-game run where they had points, and they only gave away 2 loser points along the way. That's kind of how you have to do it if you get off to a crappy start like both of these teams did.
I got a better idea. Play good all season.
Yeah, at least better than the Penguins have, that's for sure.
Yeah, this is a false dawn. The Penguins aren't a good team. They might have played well during their 10-game point streak, but they're a borderline playoff caliber team, as the standings indicate, by the grace of how bad the Eastern Conference is. It's not a good team. And it worries me that Kyle Dubas might, and Fenway Sports Group, especially the ownership, might look at this run at the end and say, yeah, we're not that far off, when in reality they are that far off.
How would they go about kind of making that call based on the roster as it's currently constructed? Like, who do you see as the potential swing players, Mark, that would be part of that decision?
I don't know. It's tough to do because of all the no movement clauses. But I have said, and I repeat, if they bring back the 4 big contracts and Mike Sullivan, it's the same team. No matter what changes they make around it, it's the same team. It will operate in exactly the same way and lose in exactly the same way. And that's what's going to suck, Tim. They have so many repetitive bad habits, allowing 2 goals in quick succession like we saw against Boston with 2 in 14 seconds, allowing a goal right after they score a goal, blowing leads late. The power play's terrible. 3-on-3 is terrible. All that stuff will happen. Conceding a goal right after they score a goal. All that stuff will happen again unless they make changes, because right now that's in the DNA of the team.
Giving away goals late in periods and open periods. That's another one that cropped up along the way, too, against Detroit a couple times.
First and last minute. And a guy that I would get rid of is Jari. I've seen enough of Jari. Now, whether you think Bloomquist, the minor league goalie, is he ready to take over? I don't know. Probably not. Can you resign the Jelkovic? I don't know. Can you go out and get somebody else? I don't know. But when you've got Jari sitting on his backside for 3 weeks and he finally gets in, and the first thing he does is make a major puck handling mistake that ends up in the net, no head for the game, no attention span.
Was that all on him, or was that on Carlson too?
That's all on him. I mean, don't get me wrong. Carlson was -4 on the night and just terrible, but that was Jari.
See, I'm with you on a lot of opinions that you just put forth about Jari. I think we might differ about tonight. I'd probably start him tonight, because if theoretically what's going on with Nedeljkovic is a lot about fatigue, then play Jari tonight then if Nedeljkovic is tapped.
I might start him tonight too.
Okay.
Just because I think Nedeljkovic is tapped and has been for several games.
I also think it was water finding its level a bit with Nedeljkovic too, especially the 3 games leading into this one against Boston.
I'm not sure he ever played that good. I just think he battled, and we use that as a reason to think he's playing better than he is. All battling does is rally the guys.
Mark, would you try to attempt desperately? What level of importance would you put on trading Carlson this offseason and trying to get something back for him?
You can't do it. He has an $11.5 million ticket, and video of games like Saturdays are available to other teams, Tim. They saw it.
Yeah, well, you know, the Penguins saw a lot of them too, and they still went out and tried to get him, though.
Well, yeah, but that was different. That was different because they dumped a lot of dead contracts in the process. I still don't regret that deal.
Just because of the assets moved out, you mean? I use the word assets, unfortunately. Just because the dead weight that they got rid of is probably the better way to say it.
Still accomplished what needed to be.
All right, so Penguins fans, we want to hear from you about the state of the team heading into this game against the Predators. You know, the one thing that gives me hope, Mark, is one of the first things you mentioned, though, is that the Eastern Conference is still so bad that maybe they'll screw up just enough to get the Pens in. I mean, my God, Washington is currently in that last wild card spot with a minus 40 goal differential. The only teams worse than that are Columbus and Montreal. Now, unfortunately, they do play Montreal.
I don't put a lot of stock in that. I know Pierre McGuire does when he appears on my show Tuesdays. But you see, if you win 3 games by 1 and lose 1 game by 8, you're minus 5, but you're 3-1. I'd rather be 3-1.
Well, the Penguins, I guess, when they were playing at their poorest, actually did have a couple of those games to kind of inflate their point total, which I think is +2 or now something like that. But yeah, they had that 10-2 win over the Sharks. Then they had another blowout win along the way. And they still, I think, for the month or the week, whatever it was around those 2 games, weren't very good. So yeah, I mean, it can be a skewed stat. But my point is there's pus at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. That's the thing.
No question. And if the Penguins make it, it'll be because somebody has to.
You know, do you think, Mark, as far as the crowd response, the state of belief, what we saw against Boston kind of pulls the plug on tonight, or do you think people out there are still talking themselves into the Penguins having a chance here in the last week?
I thought it was a good crowd against Boston. I thought it was a hot, supportive crowd, even when they got behind.
Mm-hmm.
I think the crowd tonight will be the same way, at least initially, till the out-of-town scoreboard posts bad results because of the way the Steelers have gotten in lately, where they've needed help, and gotten in. I think that'll kind of trickle to tonight.
Yeah, sort of the Jacksonville Jaguar effect if the Caps can play that role or somebody else. I just don't want to see the Flyers now back into the last wild card spot after they looked like they were dead. They were playing so bad for so long, and now they might actually wiggle their way in if the Caps give it away.
Yeah, but they only have 1 game left.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, they look real doubtful.
Yeah, they looked out. I mean, yeah, that's true. They do. They have 87 with 1 left. The other teams all have 2, correct? I think the other teams all have 2.
That's right.
But the big problem for the Penguins is, like you talked about, the out-of-town scoreboard. Everything that went wrong against Boston was exacerbated by the fact that everybody won, including Detroit, who got an extra point against Toronto. Just kind of representative, Mark, of the points that the Penguins have given away.
Well, and they gave it away to Detroit.
To Detroit, right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, well, you can look at the instances where the Penguins have mangled results in recent weeks, and that's where they missed the playoffs, but not just in recent weeks, all year long. But you look at during the 7-0-3 run, they blew a 4-zip lead at Denver and lost. They blew a 3-1 lead at Columbus and lost. Inexcusable.
All right, so Penguins fans, we do want to hear from you on this as the Penguins play the Predators tonight and then have the game against the Islanders. Of course, if it comes down to a game against the Islanders, we know how to feel about that. The Islanders and their history against the Penguins. So maybe their fate will be sealed by then, who knows, or at least close to it. But the Islanders look like they're getting in probably as the last Metropolitan Division team with the automatic berth before the wild card. I wanted to bring this up. I do see a question up here, so I'll just bring it up via question. Eric says, Twitter was making a big deal about Pasternak taking a slap shot in the last second and Sid taking exception. Is it being blown out of proportion?
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it was talked about on the broadcast. I know I didn't pay much attention to how it was discussed on Twitter, but I knew it was talked about on the broadcast. Did you?
I hate stuff like that. No, it's no big deal at all.
Like an unwritten rules thing, basically.
Was the puck in play?
The puck was in play, yes.
Okay, and the clock was still running.
Yes.
Then he's within his rights to take a slap shot.
This is like, did you see the NBA thing yesterday where the guy missed the free throws on purpose to get everybody else free chicken in the Clippers-Rockets game?
I did not.
Boban, whatever his name is, from the Rockets, missed the 2 free throws on purpose, so everybody in Los Angeles could get chicken in what was amounting to a meaningless game.
What had to happen for them to get chicken?
The chicken promotion in Los Angeles is anytime an opposing player misses 2 free throws in a row in the fourth quarter, you get chicken. So he missed the first free throw and then missed the second free throw on purpose when the game didn't have much meaning at that point. So everybody could get chicken, and now he's a national hero.
We know for sure he did that on purpose.
Oh, yeah, he was hamming it up, but he missed the free throw by a mile to the left.
He should be suspended.
Yeah, well, you know what? With gambling, I don't know what
That's
the points,
compromising the integrity of the game. He should be suspended.
with the point spread implications and all that. Yeah, I guess I didn't consider that from a gambling angle. That's a big deal now.
Tim, here's two stories I got to tell real quick in relation to what we're talking about. What's going on with the Penguins now takes me back to 1972, when there was no internet, no Twitter, no social media. And the Penguins had to win on the last night, and the Flyers had to lose to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry Meehan for Buffalo scored with like 6 seconds left on a long-range shot to beat the Flyers for Buffalo. And the Penguins were beating the Blues handily. And enough people had transistor radios, and they were picking up, I guess, the Philadelphia feed.
Yeah.
And the crowd exploded when Meehan scored. And the Penguins were still playing. The crowd exploded, and the game's still going on, and people left their seats to go buy playoff tickets, which immediately went on sale. That was pretty cool. And another story, and no one believes this story, but it's 1,000% true. And those who were there know it's true. Remember in the NBA Finals, I forget what year it was. It had to be like the late 90s, when Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman had like an on-court scuffle during Game 6, I think it was.
Yeah, the backcourt,
like
they were tripping
around,
each
right?
other. Yeah, right, yeah.
Right. They did that because WCW asked them to. There was a tag match in our pay-per-view. It was our highest-strong pay-per-view ever. And it was by coincidence because who knew those teams were going to make the finals, right? But it was Karl Malone and Diamond Dallas Page against Dennis Rodman and Hulk Hogan. So when they reached the final, they got a hold of those two and said, hey, can you do something to hype the match during the NBA Finals? And that's what they did. And that for sure happened. For sure why it happened. WCW compromised the NBA Finals.
Well, I mean, yeah, everybody thinks there's a sanctity to sports. I don't know if anything has sanctity anymore when it comes to outside influences and individual money-making or free chicken, for that matter.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought it was hilarious because like I'm watching the NBA Finals, right? And that has, I go, oh my God, they're doing it. They're doing it. It was tremendous.
I mean, I don't think that Boban took the point spread into consideration, or if the point spread was in consideration, I don't know. But it seemed like a meaningless, fun thing. But I guess you're right. If players get carried away with that sort of stuff, it's going to become a big deal, in large part because everybody gambles on everything anymore. You
know what it reminds me of, Tim?
What's that?
Corn dogs, Jackie. Corn dogs for all these people. Why is this guy saying, is this show on a tape delay?
I saw that. Well, he chimes in all the time wondering if we have summer reruns. We don't have summer reruns. We talk about the Pirates all the time in the summer. If we could have summer reruns, what would we be talking about? What the Steelers did in the playoffs against the Bills?
If I could have summer reruns, Tim, I wouldn't show up at the studio from May through August.
Speaking of reruns, I feel like when it comes to draft season, that's all we ever do is rerun the same material. So I don't want to spend too much time in the draft. We'll do a little bit more of that next week in advance of the draft. But Mark, this isn't even about the draft so much as it is the wide receiver market. The Brandon Aiyuk thing, the agent shot that down over the weekend, said that his client did not ask for a trade.
That doesn't mean it won't happen.
Doesn't mean it won't happen.
I don't think it will. And around here, the usual suspects are trying to talk him into coming to the Steelers. But here's the thing, Tim. Say you get Aiyuk. His cap hit for this year, last year of his deal was $14 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to sign him to a mega deal, correct?
Yes.
What would he get per season? About?
Well, I mean,
after this deal.
It's a good question. If the fifth-year option is at $14 million and they don't want that, I mean, probably somewhere around 12
in the long term.
Per year? How long? I mean, how? What do you expect in the cap hit to be?
No. If you signed Aiyuk to a long-term deal, how much would he get per year? He'd get like 25, 30 million, wouldn't he?
I don't think he'd get 25 or 30 million. I don't know. I mean, you're talking about you're talking about giving me a long-term deal right away, not sort of like doing a bridge deal coming off of the trade. You're talking about
exactly.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. I'd have to look that up. But go ahead. Give your thoughts.
I think he'd be looking for huge money. And if the Steelers got him and gave that to him, what would they give George Pickens, who's going to want overpaid no matter what?
Yes.
No matter how many targets, how many catches, he's going to want overpaid.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, he views himself as a number one. Frankly, right now, I think they view him as a number one because they don't have any other choices.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's part of the problem that they face with the position in general right now is that not only do they
I think they'll wind up getting rid of Pickens sooner, not later. I mean, not this year, but I don't think he'll be a Steeler that much longer. I think they've just about cleaned house of their problem kids. And I think they're going to want to finish doing that, not this offseason, but next.
Okay, so here's the answer to the question. So if they were to give him like a long-term deal and not just bridge it coming off of the, kind of fix up the fifth-year option thing, if they were to give him a long-term deal, let's see here. Tyreek tops out at 30, and everywhere from like DJ Moore on up gets over 20.
Yeah, Aiyuk's going to want over 20 for sure.
Yes, yeah, he will. Yeah.
So I think he's going to wind up staying there, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing that came out initially about the 49ers situation with Aiyuk. What was it, 3 weeks ago? Like when John Lynch was joking about it with Mike Tomlin. He was saying that, he didn't know anything about it and wasn't really worried about it because they've worked this out in the past. I think they did it with Debo, where they tend to do their deals coming off the franchise tag of the fifth-year option much later, like in August. And you always hear this scuttlebutt and these mad San Francisco players, and then they take care of business, in part, Mark, because they've never had a quarterback to worry about. Like they've had the room to get deals done late because they're paying Purdy, or they're deciding to not pay Garoppolo in the long run, or they're thinking about going with Trey Lance as a rookie. They've had the room and the time to do these longer-term deals.
And it's made them a real good team, ain't it?
Yeah, certainly. And they've got depth at wide receiver.
So they haven't picked up Aiyuk's fifth-year options this year, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, is that he doesn't want to play.
They picked it up, though, right?
He's on it right now, but they can negotiate off of it. Like they can,
right, but they did pick it up, obviously. They would have had to do that 2 years ago.
Right, so they can sign him to an extension and give him a longer-term deal. It's not like they're in a slightly different position than, say, T. Higgins, who has to, I think it's July 15th. That's the deadline where they've got to figure out if he's getting an extension or if he's going to play on the franchise tag.
I hear the Steelers are going to trade for him, too. Everybody that's available, the Steelers are going to trade for.
Well, the wide receiver position, because, if you give up a first-round pick or a second-round pick for an established veteran, even if it costs you, I think it's worth it at that position because, like I said, I don't think they have a number one, let alone a number 2 or 3. I think Pickens is a real good 2 right now. I don't know that he's a number 1, and I know they don't have a number 2 or number 3. They've got a 2 and a couple of 4s, and that's it.
If Pickens ain't the number 1, he's going to cause problems.
So you think he'd be mad if they brought in Aiyuk or Higgins?
I do.
Yeah, you know what? That might be true, and I'd love to see it. I'd love to see how Russell Wilson navigates it, too. Your new friend, Russell Wilson, who you ran into at the
we didn't speak to him. I just saw him in the catacombs of PPG Paints Arena with a 7-person entourage, including Ciara, who was wearing a Wu-Tang shirt, Wu-Tang Clan.
I was actually surprised.
I think you should remember, Tim, quarterbacks come and go, but Wu-Tang is forever.
I'm kind of surprised to see her in Pittsburgh so fast. I thought she might fly in on the occasional game day. And
I'm kind of surprised to see her in Pittsburgh at all.
Well, that's what I was saying. I think, she might come in for the occasional game day pop in the crowd, do the Taylor Swift thing. But I didn't expect her to see her at a Penguin game this far in advance of the season.
I figured her and Gino's wife would shack up in Miami. They don't want no part of Pittsburgh, Tim.
Was that part of the problem with Gino and part of the reason he's playing better lately, or was before, what was it, the Detroit game?
I don't think it's insignificant.
That his family was here?
Yes, that's right. I think it helped.
Yeah. Mark, last thing about the Pirates here. What do we take from their latest sojourn, this time through Philadelphia? They split 2 series in a row. It's kind of evened out a little bit after the hot start, but they're still playing decent.
Yeah, I mean, the big issue to me now is Kutch hit home run number 300, but he's hitting terribly. Like he's hitting the .94 with, I think, 16 strikeouts and 36 at-bats. You got to not play him.
Yeah, I think Kutch right now, he's going up there like with the intent of working the count, and that's great, and getting the pitch count up, and he's good at drawing walks. But I wonder if sometimes maybe he's put himself into a pickle with having to swing at some bad pitches because he hasn't gotten the breaks on a lot of calls. He's got.
I wonder if sometimes he can't hit no mo.
Yeah, he just might not be able to cover the plate like he used to.
He's an old guy, Tim. And if
this
team is a contender, as we hear from everybody that they are, right? A contender for something. You can't indulge sentiment.
They've played a lot of lefties early, so he's gotten maybe some artificially inflated at bats because of the amount of lefties that they've faced. I would imagine that would even out as the season goes along, but they do need more productivity there. And some of the hot starts from some of the other guys have faded. Now, that said, some other guys have picked it up and gotten a little bit better lately. But, they got the Mets coming up for 3 and then the Red Sox here. So there's some winnable games on the horizon. Oh, we should talk about the Masters, too, and what happened with Tiger.
Well, he stinks.
Speaking of maybe retiring.
I don't think he's physically able to golf at that level anymore. I don't think he's physically able to walk that amount of holes in that amount of days and maintain his performance.
I think he's trying to get time
up
back.
By car wrecks, whoremongering, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think he's trying to get time back, and he's proven he can't do it. There's something about these golfers that golf into their golden years and some of the majors, and they come out and they wave to the crowd, and then they shoot their way over par, and they don't make the cut, and that's fine. I feel like Tiger feels as if he had some of those years taken away by the injuries, the back, the knees, and the car wreck too.
Yeah, well, that's too bad. I mean, life sucks, and then you die. He can never diminish his legacy, but he can embarrass himself on TV on the day, and that's what he did at Augusta.
All right, so let's get a couple of points here from Richard, who says, when does a coach become accountable for the team's continued mistakes? They make the same mistakes and are terrible with on-ice decisions over and over again, yet nothing ever changes. You would think eventually the coach would have to answer why they keep happening with seemingly zero accountability from anyone.
Yep, you would think.
Well, we talked about this in the podcast because he came out with that quote after the Detroit game, Sullivan did, where he said, words to the effect of, there's a lot to learn from this game. So did Carlson. So did Nedeljkovic. They're 79 games in. What are they going to learn? Like, we keep
80, Tim, just 2 games left.
I mean, like, this whole learning thing. Like, class has been in session for a long time, kids. Learn if you're going to learn.
Well, and that worries me because they talk about it like it's a long-term project. Okay? Anything with a bunch of late 30-somethings is not a long-term project.
This guy, Ron, says O'Connor had an incredible short-handed goal. Yeah, he did.
That was great.
Yeah, that was a great goal. Sullivan did talk about that post-game a little bit too. How do you think he's evolving, especially playing on Sid's line?
I think his physicality is catching up to his size a little bit. He's 6'3", but doesn't play big, but he's playing bigger. I think he's learning how to play with Sid, and that is a great career move, as we know. He has, I think, 6 goals in 10 games, and the Penguins have won 7 of those, so I think he's done very well.
Jeremy says, what's more disappointing, the trade for Carlson or Derek Brassard?
Well, the trade for Derek Brassard, as it turns out, filled no tangible goal. And you lost guys like Philip Gustafson, who would be their number 1 goalie right now. The Carlson trade, there's nobody you gave up you wish you had back except for the first-round pick. And you got rid of dead contracts. I still don't regret the Carlson deal.
How do you feel about Bunting offsetting Gensel? There's sort of a narrative that's taken place, but Jake's been really good with Carolina. I mean, I think Bunting's been better than I expected, but I don't think it's offset the loss of Jake as much as people.
It reminds me of Neil for Hornquist, and that Gensel's clearly the better player, but Bunting brings something to the Penguins that they didn't have.
I would agree with that, but I also don't think he's offset the pure point production that Gensel's a part of.
Not even close.
Yeah.
But then again, nor did Hornquist offset the goal production.
True, but the irritant factor, I guess that's some of what Bunting brings.
Hey, Gensel's better than Neil, and Hornquist is better than Bunting. So you got to take that into consideration, too.
Real quick, since we were talking about the Bruins earlier, did you see, I know you've been critical of their center position, some things about them. Did you see anything from them in person that makes you think that maybe they can beat the Rangers or the Panthers in the East?
Zaka played better than I thought at center. He scored a real nice goal, but I think they're too weak at center. Too weak at center to beat Florida, but I don't think the Rangers are very good either.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. There are only 3 good teams in the East, Bruins, Rangers, and Panthers, and 2 of them aren't that good.
Jeremy adds, who's going to win the Great Pittsburgh Sports Debate? Well, it depends, Mark. Are you going to be healthy enough to go after the dental surgery? That's the big question.
I'm assuming so, Tim. Yeah, I'm assuming I'll be okay.
That is at McFadden's tomorrow night. We will both be a part of it. And more importantly, Gene Steratore.
It's like a small group. It's me, you, and Pursuta. That's it, right?
They used to have a fourth. Yeah.
Well, Stan passed.
Yeah.
Maybe just to get out of doing this.
Great career move.
Yeah. Why? I mean, we need a fourth. Why can't we get a fourth?
Should we ask Guy at the last minute? There's no Pirates game. See if Guy wants to come.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Steratore's going to involve himself. You know that.
Yeah, and he'll be hammered.
That's always a good thing.
I mean, I'm going to have to talk too much with dental surgery, Tim. With dental surgery.
Like we brought in Borky for a Penguins segment. We brought in Casey for a Pirates segment. You know, like we could bring in guys and just kind of spot them in around the three of us.
I don't know.
We could bring Colby Armstrong in.
I don't know, Tim. That's starting to hurt already.
All right. One more here I want to get to. Mike says, Mark, what would you tell the Penguins tonight in the pregame speech? Is it like a Herb Miracle on Ice speech? They're not going to buy that. They're not going to buy that at this point.
No. I think the first thing Sully would say, look, I would hope that Bruins game was a learning experience. I don't know. What's going to happen is going to happen. And we should remember, if they don't make the playoffs, it won't be because of what happened these last, 2, 3, however many games, right? It's how bad they were all year.
Yeah, for sure. It's like I said, the Predators I think they had a very similar record to the Penguins at that point. And they just turned it on for more than a month. And they didn't give away points, and they rattled off 18 in a row with points. 16 of them were victories. So there's 32 points right there. The Penguins never had an extended stretch until they got to this 10-gamer where they went 7-0-3 and still failed to get some points that loom very large right now. Those 3 that they gave away during the good stretch, Mark, might be the difference. They'd be contending with the Islanders. They
will be the difference. The only good story coming out of this is that Sid was superhuman this year. He really was. I mean, for him to almost, even if they almost make it, for Sid to almost drag this group, which isn't very good, into the playoffs is just incredible. And one of the big problems with this group is it thinks it's a lot better than it is.
Yeah, and that, like you said, maybe that transfers to coaching and management, and that's the biggest problem. Now, the real issue for you, Mark.
This has been a weird year, okay? I'll give you an example.
All right.
They honored Lars Eller for his 1000th game, right? Was it his 1000th?
I think so, yeah.
And then Eric Carlson for his 1000th, right? As a Penguin fan, I just don't care about that. They didn't play here.
Well, the Carlson thing.
They should have like a thing between the first intermission, first stoppage and play, a video. Congratulations to Eric Carlson and Lars Eller on game number 1000. Instead, it's like a Broadway musical. I mean, they didn't play here. They're not Penguins.
No, the Carlson thing went on for so long, I thought Yager was back in town getting his number retired again.
That's like, I always hear that Jeff Carter tries to have influence in the locker room. We don't need your influence in the locker room, Mr. Flyer. We don't need that. Who are you? Here.
Hey, Mark, the real story is, forget the Great Pittsburgh
That's one thing. I will say this. I'm going to cite Liverpool Football Club.
I was just going to say, you got to get to England so you can be a good luck charm again. They've struggled.
Yeah, they haven't won since I was there. 2 losses and a draw. Just terrible. But at Liverpool, when they get like the star player from another team, it's explained to him. It matter what you did there. It doesn't matter. Actually, it's the same with WWE. When they get like a star from another promotion, it's quickly explained. It doesn't matter what you did there.
Yeah, hopefully somebody gives that speech to Russell Wilson.
I wish it was like that with the Penguins.
All right, Mark's going to go to the dentist. I'm going to be on his show today. Make sure you catch up with us at the Great Pittsburgh Sports Debate at McFadden's tomorrow night. It's at 7:30. We've been brought to you by Rush to Crush Cancer. More than a ride, it's a mission. Join us May 19th for the Rush to Crush Cancer bike ride. To register, go to rushtocrushcancer.org and help us in the fight against cancer. Join the ride.